Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin. Alan Ruff and Neil Murray are here with me to talk football, and we're delighted that you could join us on our YouTube channel, and thank you very much for all the fabulous support you are offering us right across all our social media channels. The consumption of our news, breaking stories as well on the app, absolutely fantastic. If you get a chance, download the PLZ Soccer app. You'll get all the breaking news at your fingertips. And of course, on a regular basis, lots of people tuning in to our one-to-ones, our documentaries, and of course the Football Show on a regular basis. And we're delighted that you could join us today. Lots to talk about. Celtic can win the league at Tynecastle. How do we know this? Because the split fixtures have been published. In other news, Rangers unhappy with some Aberdeen fans for an unsavoury chant up at that game at Postecoglou, where Aberdeen won by a couple of goals to nil. The Dons obviously are looking at options to try and keep Graeme Shinnie. Motherwell have knocked back a bid for Kevin Van Veen. And could Pochettino be on his way back to English football as manager of Chelsea? Just a few of the topics that might catch your attention. You might want to give us your thoughts on it. But the quiz question before we even start thinking about the post-split fixtures, and this one is to do with Arsenal against Man City tomorrow. Which player scored the final winning goal in Arsenal's invincible season? This was, of course, the last time Arsenal won the league title. They played against Leicester. They won by 2-1. I can't say any more than that, Ruffy. I'm laying it on a plate for you.
Midfield.
Who scored the goal? If you think you know, give us the answer on the feed on our YouTube channel, and we will deliver the answer to you before we go off here tonight. So Neil and Ruffy are here. They're with me, and the post-split fixture. So here's match day 34. This is how it looks in the first one, which is Hibs against St Mirren, Motherwell against Kilmarnock, Ross County against Livingston. That's your bottom six. And St Johnstone, Dundee United, Hearts against Celtic, and Rangers against Aberdeen. So there you have it. What do you make of that?
Well, they're all interesting fixtures in their own right, of course. There's a lot to play for post-split, especially, Hearts and Aberdeen vying for third spot in Europe, Hibs potentially also. And certainly for the bottom lot, it's trying to avoid the banana skin of automatic relegation or even the playoff. Did
the weekend's results surprise you, Neil? Because we didn't get very many points in the predictor.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of these weekends where it was set up to be explosive, and it was anything but. St Mirren losing and Livy not taking advantage of that, or other slip-ups. Hibs, not performing very well either. So it was set up to be a cracking weekend, but it didn't really turn out that way.
Yeah. Did you relish Aberdeen Rangers games when you were playing?
Yeah, I mean, they were always difficult. Travelling up there was the longest journey at that point. and you're always guaranteed a fiery welcome up Aberdeen. And to be fair, they had a good team. I mean, at that point, Aberdeen were probably the second best team in the country.
Yeah.
So there were good battles against Aberdeen, cup finals and league tussles. They're good players, so they were always difficult games.
Yeah. Of course, at the weekend,
ask Neil who the first team.
What?
Ask Neil who the best team was at that time.
Well,
Aberdeen, you're saying.
He was in
Rangers.
Rangers.
Yeah.
And Celtic third.
So I mean, even Motherwell were fighting for second and third at that stage as well. I mean, they're good players as well. The football was pretty competitive. An even level of players, the Scottish players.
Yeah, well, as I've mentioned to you before, when Rangers won 9 in a row, 6 out of the 9, Celtic weren't second.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They weren't Rangers' main contenders.
Yeah, I mean, Celtic games are obviously, again, they've got their own spice and they were difficult, but Aberdeen and Motherwell were competing at the top of the table at that point, and they were all difficult games.
Yeah, absolutely. Give us your thoughts on the split. What do you make of it, Tynecastle?
Yeah, I think Celtic are very, very fortunate. They've got so many points in hand because they've been handed 2 very, very tough away games. Hearts away and then Rangers away. You just imagine if Celtic were only maybe 7 or 8 points clear. You'd be looking at those 2 ties and going, there's 2 ties you could possibly lose 6 points. So no, they'll get points in the bag. I've never been part of a senior, a Premier League winning team. I've got a couple of First Division medals, but I don't know. You want to win the league. I would prefer to win at home when you've got 60,000 of your supporters there. I know you want to win it and you want to win it quick and get it out the road, but going to Tynecastle, I don't know how many Celtic supporters would be in, 6,000?
Yeah.
Something like that, you know. So they're the ones that are getting the privilege, if Celtic beat them, obviously, they're the ones that are getting the joyous day. When I would have preferred, I know the fixtures don't make it that way, but I would have preferred to win it in front of my home fan.
And what a huge incentive it is for Hearts to beat Celtic, and then Celtic to try and win it in front of no fans at Ibrox against Rangers.
Well, I suppose that's the doomsday scenario for Rangers, I think, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think Celtic have got enough in the tank to go to Tynecastle and win anyway. However, that again is a difficult tie, as Ruffy said. You know, you can conceivably go to Tynecastle and lose potentially, but I expect Celtic to win that. And if they don't, then yeah, I mean, it's added spice for the Rangers-Celtic game the week after.
The Celtic players be brave enough to do a lap of honour at Ibrox if they won it at Ibrox.
Well, I was just thinking about it, Ruffy. You know, it's one of those games where there are only the backroom staff. There's no 750 fans. So there's nobody, absolutely nobody will be in that ground who would even raise their head above the parapet. Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those unbelievable situations that could actually arise when, you know, the Hearts game is finished.
Is there any reason why they didn't make that game the third or the fourth game?
Well, I think that the main talking point here seems to be that they were in consultation with the police. That's why there was a delay in revealing the split. And obviously over and above that with the Sky Sports, obviously with the option of what they're going to show, where it fits into their schedule as well. And then once that consultation is finished, you then, I mean, at the end of the day, listen, if you're trying to avoid the Celtic Rangers showdown for a title, which I think is ridiculous, you know, I mean, that's the country we live in. We cannot have a Celtic Rangers title showdown. Think about it.
Yeah, but it was the precedent not set with the Hugh Dallas.
No, absolutely. I know.
Was that 99 or something?
Absolutely, but then at the end of the day, you know, even prior to that, 1980, when they were throwing bottles at each other, you know, there was a real clampdown. But society hasn't moved on enough in this country to have a title showdown between Rangers and Celtic. Even if they were close, it just shows you how mad it is, doesn't it? I mean,
well,
it's
it does.
ridiculous.
I think different here as well. You know, in foreign stadiums they'll have actually fences and moats. Yeah, some of them. Whereas here, there's no level of security other than the thin yellow line.
Of stewards who don't really want to put themselves in the firing line, and why should they? Hi Peter, can you say hello to Neil Muzzy for me? I went to school with him and I had many a kick about with him. I haven't seen him since we left. Craig Govan.
Oh, Govey, good player. Yeah.
So there you are. You see, people watch. It just gives you a chance to rekindle old friendships. And Elsie says, I haven't seen Ruffy since 1942. Could you phone? Only kidding you, Ruffy. It's she just says right to her. So that's match day 34. What about the remaining 35? How does that look in the split? You have Rangers against Celtic, Aberdeen against Hibs, St Mirren against Hearts, Dundee United Ross County, Kilmarnock Livingston, and St Johnstone against Motherwell. So 13th we now know will be Rangers against Celtic, Ruffy.
Yeah, we're looking at the permutations of how it would go. You know, as you say, I think everybody would prefer if Celtic were to go to Ibrox, having won the league title rather than winning it there. You know, I think if you're a Rangers supporter, it's something you want to witness. You know, that at the end of that game, obviously the Rangers fans wouldn't be too happy either. So, you know, it's a scenario that I'm sure Rangers don't want to happen. They want Celtic to go there and they want them to beat them, obviously, and rejoice in that. But, you know, but it's an interesting one. I'm looking further down. I think the odds have been stacked against Ross County now. I think Ross County have been dished out the 3 away games. Which in the position that they're in just now doesn't look particularly good. Yeah,
I think Malky's really up against it. Celtic have 3 away games and 2 home games, while Rangers have 3 at home and 2 away. What about match day 36? here's how it all panned out. Celtic against St Mirren, Hearts against Aberdeen, which, well, depending on what happens in the first two games, who knows, that could be the big showdown for third, although I think it might be done and dusted before then. Kilmarnock against St Johnstone, Livingston Dundee United, Motherwell Ross County, and Hibs against Rangers. That would be really exciting for the league if it was a showdown there between Hearts and Aberdeen.
Yeah, I mean, in a certain sense it still is. That's why the post-split fixtures are interesting. You know, if you assume, of course, that Celtic beat Hearts and Rangers beat Aberdeen at home, then there's still a slight cushion for Aberdeen.
Yeah.
But then again, if Hearts win their game against Aberdeen, then you're on 2 games to go and nerves can get the better of some players.
Yeah, I mean, that's where Neil Doncaster and the rest of the SPFL board say it works.
It does work. You know, I think it's worked for the past 2 or 3 seasons. You know, we don't have any teams. Well, I think the only team that I can think of off the top of my head is Livingston. You know, having to get really much to play for. You know, so I think everybody else will have a right good end to the season because they all need to know they all have to win games.
And here is the second last set of fixtures for you to look at, because it starts to become really nervy at the bottom end. Aberdeen against St Mirren, Hibs, Celtic, Rangers against Hearts. As Neil alluded to, that could have implications as it gets tighter for third place. It's Dundee United, Kilmarnock, Livingston, Motherwell, and Ross County, St Johnstone. And I know you think it's up, they're up against it, but I still think there's a twist in the tail with Malky. I still think he's got something there. And St Johnstone not quite out of it, might just have enough by the skin of their teeth.
No, I think this is when a manager earns his corn. You know, Malky has to keep telling his players to believe that they can get out of this. If you see his interviews, he's always sticking by them, and forget about that 6-1 result. The game before that we did well, and the game before that we did well. Game before that we were okay. You know, he has to make the players believe that in the situation they're in now, I mean, I've not got it in front of me, but he'll be looking at the results of all these games in the bottom 6, how they've done against St Johnstone, how they've done against the teams that are down there, and it might be pretty good because obviously they weren't beating any of the teams in the top 6, so he might have a good record, the teams in the bottom 6, so that might be what he's trying to play on.
I think though in these situations, unless a team spectacularly implodes like Hibs did the year they were relegated when Terry Butcher was the manager, it's difficult to really gain that much traction because you have to win the majority of your 5 games and someone else has to lose the majority of 5 games, and the balance of probabilities is it'll be fairly equal, you know. So
count you're gone.
Do you know, even as much as sometimes you can't read into a one game, losing 6 isn't good, you know, and they might have been playing well but they haven't been winning games, so I think they're up against it, you know, especially as you say, if they've got 3 away games, it's
county for you gone. Don't worry about it. You mean there are certain areas where we all feel we know we can't visit, and Dingwall can just tick that off for you. Don't worry, Tam.
I was up at Tynecastle recently as well.
Well, Tam is alienated from about half the country now, isn't he, Ruffy? But
would it be even worse to say if Inverness go up? I wouldn't mind that either.
That would really put the cat among the pigeons. But you know, by the way, Cheryl's just reminded us, our digital journalist, 1,200 fans, Celtic fans at Tynecastle. 1,200.
They make some noise though, to be fair.
Oh, they do, that corner, in the corner, they do. But again, it's only 1,200, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you'll take it, quite rightly so. It's been a long season, you'll take it. And but then they have to, they go, as you said there, they go to Ibrox and they can't celebrate. And so they're hanging about.
St Mirren.
You know, you're waiting, you know, 3 weeks nearly before you can actually physically celebrate winning it.
Yeah, I noticed, apart from cup competitions apart, I noticed that Alexander Seferin has suggested that, you know, some Champions League games in the future could be played in America. Maybe that would allow a fair split of fans, you know, once it goes to America.
Depends which state you go to.
Yeah, exactly. Only in Scotland can we get to a situation where we inhibit both sets of fans. And also, I don't know if you've seen the movie Groundhog Day. Do you remember the movie?
Yeah, what was that in America?
Andy McDowell, Bill Murray.
Yes, Andy McDowell and Bill Murray. It just keeps repeating the same day time and time again, and that's why I'm just about to read out Nicky Twig's comment, which is what we get every year after the split, and that is well done, Nicky, for highlighting it. He says, Peter, if Celtic beat Hearts, will Rangers give Celtic a clap of honour onto the park? on the game at Ibrox. Comes up every year, Ruffy.
What's the precedent for this?
The precedent is quite simply usually the champions are applauded onto the park. It has happened before.
For every game they play from the moment they win the league?
Just the next game, the opposition clap them onto the park as champions. Look at that. The look in his face is priceless, isn't it? It's not going to happen, don't worry about it. But by the way, it's good for a noise up, Ruffy, because everybody goes tonto in our country about it, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, any time I've done it, it's not bothered me, if I'm playing against, because what it does, it just makes you want to beat them. If you're celebrating now, you just say to yourself, well, you're not be celebrating at the end, because I'm going to do my damnedest, and put myself through being a loser, and I think anybody that's been in the game, that my biggest memory of a loser, a real loser, a horrible loser, is Wimbledon, when the final of the men's singles, when the winner wins, the loser is banished to his seat and nobody gives a toss about him, and he just sits there, and I think that's the same, when in that scenario, if you lose that game, it's a must be a horrible feeling.
Yeah, well, it's not. I don't think it's the same feeling as the loser at Wimbledon. No. Ruffy gets a cheque for about £1 million. I want to be a loser at Wimbledon. Neil, do you? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, you know what I mean. Yeah. He's just bad. Nobody bothers with him.
Well, don't worry about it. There's not going to be a lap of what. Nobody will be clapped onto the park at Ibrox if Celtic do indeed win against Hearts at Tynecastle.
Wouldn't it be a breath of fresh air if they did?
Oh, look, we can't even get a situation where both of them agree to away fans.
No, but it would be.
You know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely.
Craig Brown was a big believer in clapping opposition teams onto the pitch.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Listen, there's sportsmanship, and then it depends on what way you're made up. It's not going to happen in this country. Honestly, there sits the man calling for integrity and decency, right? Who was part of the WhatsApp group that were all colluding together when COVID was on. Where's your votes? Who are you voting for? I'm voting for this one. Okay, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Neil, there you are.
But they wouldn't cause any problem, because there's no Celtic supporters in the stadium.
Yeah.
Because there's not going to be any friction between the supporters. So.
Yeah. Okay, Ruffy.
Although somebody might do a Lee Griffiths style tying the scarf around the post.
Well, absolutely. But by the way, listen, do you know what it is? I don't even know why I said, have you seen Groundhog Day? Have you seen The Wizard of Oz? Because you're dreaming, you're opening the door to a lovely, colourful utopia which doesn't exist in this country. But apart from anything else, listen, whoever wins the league, they're the best team over that course of the season. I don't think it'll bother any of the players as long as they get their medal. And of course, there's points to play for and money to be earned as well. What about the last set of fixtures on that final day? So, Celtic against Aberdeen, Hearts against Hibs on the last day. That is amazing. St Mirren against Rangers, Kilmarnock Ross County, Motherwell Dundee United, and St Johnstone against Livingston. I wonder, could Kilmarnock against Ross County, Ruffy, be the battle to see who finishes in the playoff and who's bottom?
They still are my 1 and 2. I obviously said that Ross County haven't got a good deal out of this one. Kilmarnock have got a good deal. They've got 3 at home. They're particularly good at home. They're better at home than they are away, so they'll be rubbing their fingers, or their hands, sorry.
Yeah. And their fingers.
And their fingers. And they will, because 3 home games, and particularly the last one, if the pressure's on, you're not going to have to go away up to Ross County. They're done and dusted. They've got to come down. But I think they two now, seeing the fixtures, will be the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do you think of the split? Fair? Are you happy with it for your team? Are you rubbing your fingers in anticipation, as Ruffy has suggested? Give us your thoughts on that. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. We always promise you no shortage of new content, lots of interesting interviews, one-to-ones that you can get involved in. And let's not forget, tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, it's an exclusive one-to-one with Neil Lennon, the former Celtic manager, talking about Omonia Nicosia, talking about his time at Celtic, the second time, and the disappointment of leaving the club It was a difficult season with no fans at the ground, and Neil talks about that openly, gives us his assessment of Celtic against Rangers in the Scottish Cup semi-final coming up, talks about Ange Postecoglou and Michael Beale, and of course many other things, including 20 years ago it was the road to Seville and that UEFA Cup final, and there's some really interesting stuff coming out of Neil Lennon's mouth. It's well worthy of your consideration tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. And one of the points that Neil Lennon was talking about, he told PLZ Soccer that this current side that Celtic have and the financial strength that they have, he feels as if under Ange Postecoglou, possibly someone else later on, but he still feels Celtic are so strong that there could be another period of dominance ahead.
I think it's you're looking at another long period of dominance for Celtic. You know, I think that they're so well managed. You know, obviously COVID had an impact on everyone, but you know, player cheating again. Then you've got the likes of Frimpong who could go. You know, if he goes for big money, then Celtic get another, you know, add-on from that. So the club's in rude health, and that's because they've got really smart people behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting point there that Neil makes.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see what Rangers do before I jump into Neil's bandwagon. You know, I think it's going to be a massive turn to see what kind of calibre that he's going to bring in, what kind of quality is he going to bring in, what kind of budgets he got. You know, how many players is he going to bring in, how many players is he going to leave, you know, because we've already seen in a one-off game, they're no miles apart. Celtic are still winning the games, but taking your chances, you might have won some of the games, Rangers. So for the long term, I think it depends on what players he brings in and where they come from.
Yeah, we've all talked about how big a job it is for him, but you know, as we've mentioned, and I think it's really interesting, the comments from Neil in analysing Rangers and Celtic, and of course both managers, that he knows only too well, and many a manager will know, you can have all the plaudits in the world, but eventually Rangers fans will look and say, well, you've got to sign good players, you've got to make sure that they're good enough for the standard to get us into Europe in the Champions League, and then the rewards of that, over and above that, you've got to beat Celtic. And I mean, I'm reading now people saying if he doesn't win at the weekend, he's going to be under pressure, already severe pressure.
Yeah, I think from a fan's point of view, there's probably a number of fans that maybe weren't convinced in the first place. So negative results will amplify that.
What about your point of view?
Well, football's about winning games, and to be fair, he's won the vast majority of the games. Okay, the first team he's come unstuck against out with Celtic's Aberdeen, and again that's caused people to make some noise around the situation. You know, obviously, if you don't win, if Rangers don't win at the weekend, Scottish Cup's gone. Last year they did win a trophy, this year they don't, so again, that's not progress. It's not solely the manager's fault. But then you get, maybe we've talked about this before, and Ruffy mentioned it, you've mentioned it, you get to next season, if Rangers don't qualify for Champions League, Van Bronckhorst did that, so where does that leave the current manager? You know, it is a key summer for signings, bringing players. I think the good thing from Rangers' point of view, and Michael Beale's shown it already, that since he's come in as a manager, they've only lost against Celtic, and granted the last game against Aberdeen, so if they can bring a certain number of players of good quality, then
how many do you think he needs?
Well, you would goalkeeper, striker, central mid, winger, 4, maybe 5, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, so but the thing that people sometimes don't account for is Rangers have got a really, really big squad. They've got a lot of players.
Yeah. There's a lot of players going to be going out though, Neil.
Yeah, no, but even still, I mean, you know, if you look at wide players, you know, Kent, Matondo, Sakala, Wright, Hadji, arguably. Kent's the only one that's leaving. You know, Cholak, Morelos goes, so striker, maybe winger. You know, central mid, Davis doesn't really play, Arfield doesn't really play, so they're gone. But he'll still keep Kamara, Lundstrom, Raskin,
Hadji.
you know. Yeah, so again, there's not really a lot of room for manoeuvre. They've still got a big squad. You know?
Right, can I ask you this? If there's not a lot of room for manoeuvre, is that squad good enough?
No, because that's the squad that's played this season that's not been good enough.
No, but do you think that squad, supplemented by 4, is capable of flipping it again, you know?
I think it depends on the quality. I mean, Ruffy will tell you, in my opinion, a goalkeeper's worth their weight in gold. Equally as important as a striker, you know, and if you've got a good goalkeeper that saves points, you know, the Andy Gorham, the Custer Tommy Burdens, etc., you know, if you've got a good goalkeeper that saves points and you manage to get a striker like a Furuhashi or someone like a Morelos on the top of his game, that can change the dynamic of the team. And maybe one other, you know, a central midfield player who's an aggressive ball winner, captain, leader type, you know, by adding certain bits of quality in key areas, it can make a difference.
Yeah, of course, the defeat at Aberdeen was a painful one, and I think a lesson, according to the Rangers manager.
No, I think it's the reality of Scottish football for some players. I think Aberdeen look like they're back to their old self, if you like, under Derek, quite front foot, quite aggressive in the way they play. You could see what it meant to them at the end, and that's fine. You know, it's a rivalry. You could see what it meant to them to get the win, and I think it's a warning sign for us going into next year. We've gone away from home and blew quite a few teams away, but next year that sort of result will be hugely damaging to us. So it's an eye-opener for 1 or 2 players.
Yeah, and already, you know, Michael Beale has highlighted the fact that he's been scouting about. Jack Butland, the latest to be linked with a move to Rangers. Ruffy, if you have a look at his stats, I think he's about 30 years of age. 30, 290 appearances, 81 clean sheets, English Premier League appearances 87, clean sheets 21, 9 England caps. Is that the sort of player? Were you surprised, first of all, that that's a name that suddenly emerged?
No, that. I would think that's the kind of goalkeeper that would go for. You know, that he's been about playing at top level for a long time down there. I think he comes into the category of, I think so. You know, I think he's obviously at a time he was hanging about the England. He was part of the 3 goalkeepers anyway. It was part of the England setup. So he's got something. And I think when I saw his name, I went, I think good choice.
Yeah, just one of a number that you mentioned that they will need undoubtedly. Of course, they've been linked with. I think by the time you get to the summer, you know what it's like. You've been linked with everybody and their granny. Just on the current squad that was there at the weekend when you watched that game, they did have a lot of possession, Rangers, but in the end they lost. Michael Beale alluded to the fact that he reckons it's the old Aberdeen. I'm not too caught up in things like that. You know, you can get that anomaly when suddenly there's a bit of bite in a game and a team that's so unfancied, you know, suddenly steps up to the plate. Aberdeen had a bit of form going into it, but they haven't really been the Aberdeen that everybody wanted for the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's the old cliche, but it's true. You know, goals and key moments change games, and if Rangers had taken 2 of the 3 chances they had, it's a different complexion in the game entirely. You know, I think it was 75% or thereabouts possession for Rangers, 20 shots, albeit I think 3 in target. So, you know, Rangers should have put the game to bed in the first half.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's the difference between Rangers and Celtic. Celtic in the final third can be devastating, and they put themselves ahead and it demoralises teams.
Yeah.
Whereas Rangers, sometimes they leave the door open.
Yeah. Of course, the one thing that goes hand in hand sometimes when there's an edge in these games, and we build them up, we want to try and make them as exciting as possible prior to it. Hopefully the game lives up to it, but sometimes the fans' conduct doesn't live up to it. And I think any fan who sings songs, you know, glorifying tragedy, whether it be, you know, a disaster that engulfed Rangers Football Club, or indeed certain individuals who have passed away, anybody who sings that sort of stuff really should never be allowed back in a football ground. But the unsavoury chance certainly has left Rangers releasing this statement. Obviously, with regards to some of the chants, Rangers are liaising with both Police Scotland and Aberdeen following a number of incidents both during and after yesterday's match at Pittodrie. The club can confirm a Rangers supporter was injured after missiles were thrown at Rangers supporters, buses as they departed in a convoy from the stadium. The club is also disgusted by chanting from the Aberdeen sections of the stadium which mocked the Ibrox disaster, the deaths of club legends, and the desire for a member of the current first team squad to die. I mean, it's just people whose heads are in the gutter.
Yeah, and it must be terrible, you know, if you're in that part of the crowd that's doing that, you know, because you if you were just a normal person, you would want to try and do something about it. No, obviously tell them to shut up or whatever, you know, but you're taking your life in your hands if you do that, if it's a lot of people. But it's not something you want to hear, but it's bad for the club, it's bad for our league, it's bad for, you know, people who hear it. And again, you know, there'll be too many people doing it that you can single them out and arrest them and do something about it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not something we want to hear.
No, absolutely. And if they do find anybody who was singing it on CCTV, they should take immediate action. I know that, you know, when there was a section, and great credit to her as well, and I mentioned this on this programme, when there was a section of Hearts fans singing unsavoury songs a couple of years ago, Ange Budge just shut that area down and then picked out the people who were singing, and they never got back. Yeah,
I mean, it does take a strong leader or good leadership to carry that through, and at that time she did that at Hearts and it worked. As Ruffy said, well, it's difficult if there's numbers of them, you know, if it's huge numbers, how do you pick out and isolate certain individuals? It's, you know, I think sadly it's not unusual.
Yeah.
In Scottish football, it's not just Aberdeen fans, it's, you could pick any number of clubs, there'll be incidents similar throughout the season.
It's all about your upbringing. It's as simple as that. Okay, so we've talked about Rangers, but I think great credit to Aberdeen. If there's a high up at Aberdeen, they deserve all the plaudits that have been coming their way, especially Barry Robson, because, you know, a number of people, including of course Ross McCrory, says, listen, you know, how long do you have to wait? Robson is proving that he is the ideal candidate for the manager's job.
If I was a chairman, I'd just give him a job, to be honest. Since he's been in, like, that's up to the chairman, but since the gaffers came in, I've obviously known for a couple of years when I first came up here under McInnes, and since he's come in, been a breath of fresh air, tweaked a few things within the system, made us more aggressive. It's just the stuff in general. We've just been doing little different things, wee combinations and things, and it's really paying off, and it showed us a different aspect of the game at times. As I say as well, physically the team are, I would say, we're in a different world now. We're really bang at it.
Yeah, they are bang at it, and of course it'd be nice for Barry Robson to get the job, and then Ross McCrory say, by the way, I'm off to Bristol City in a £2 million move.
Yeah, good luck to the boy. You know, I think he's been superb since he went there. You know, obviously, you know, they lost Ferguson, which was a big blow to them, but he's sort of stepped in. He's playing at the back, he's playing at midfield, and you can tell they're much more organised now. When Rangers had the large part of, I would say, the last 25 minutes of the game, you could see they had a bank of four, you could see they were all disciplined enough to see, you know, remember before they used to just defend.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
But now they're defending. The big boy at the back, I can't remember off the top of my head, they got him on loan for England. He's been absolutely superb, you know, and the organisation at Aberdeen just now is totally different to where they were.
Yeah, I know everybody's been talking about Barry Robson getting the job. The interim boss at the moment, I think, is just trying to avoid all the speculation.
And you know the answer, don't you? I'll tell you later, we'll speak about that later. Let's not get carried away about me and what about, oh, you're going to get that. I don't care. Let's put this about the players and the fans today. It's not about me. Put it on to them. Talk about how good they've been today and talk about how much they ran and fought for the club. That's what I would like all you to talk about, no me.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, Barry. We like speculating on whether you're getting it or not. 6 weeks ago, his name was not on anybody's lips.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think we've mentioned it before. He's an Aberdeen lad. He comes from the northeast. He, you know, is obviously ingrained in the club over a period of years, and he's a winner. And you know, I think people get interim jobs, and it's only a matter of weeks, and there's a clamour to turn it into a permanent. But if he sees this season out, it's more than just been an interim role. Effectively, you're talking half a season. You know, he deserves it. If they finish in third place, he absolutely deserves the job if he wants it, of course. You know.
Yeah, we couldn't see him doing that when he took over at the end of January, because they looked in complete disarray. Now suddenly, you know, they're bang at it, as Ross McCrory says, and of course even bang at it without Graeme Shinnie, and I think Aberdeen are keen to keep him long term, but let's not forget he wasn't there.
No, he wasn't, but I think we all can see the difference, you know, since he went there. He's an experienced player. He's always been part of the organisation behind the scenes, you know, and I think the people who will get Barry Robson the job are people like Shinnie, because I would like to think the board would be actively asking the experienced players, what is the change? What is it? What is it? And they're obviously going to give positive answers. Crawley was there saying the training's different, you know, we're all enjoying ourselves, we're doing this, and these are the kind, although winning games will help him, but what he's doing behind the scenes will just be as effective.
Yeah, okay, we're getting to that point where you can give us your thoughts on the split. Are you happy with it? What do you make of the remaining games? Have you been happy with are you happy with your home games and you're away in the split? Ange Postecoglou has put out a comment regarding the split. He says it's always a bit of a challenge, I guess, for those doing it. I would have liked it to have had at least one home game in those first two, because it means that our supporters won't see us for 3 weeks, so it would have been nice, but ultimately it is what it is. We've just got to deal with what's before us in terms of the league. That's going to Hearts away from home. They've got a new manager in Stephen Naismith, and they got a great result last week, so it's always a challenge at Tynecastle anyway, so it'll be a good place to go and win it, because we're going to have to earn it to do it. So no surprise, Ange Postecoglou, not in any way perturbed or making a meal out of it. Get on with it.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it, actually. You know, if you go to Tynecastle and win, you've earned that victory in that league title. I think, you know, you can look at the split in a variety of ways. Yeah, they don't get the first two games, but they've got the last game of the season at home. You know, so that's a party atmosphere then, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on that now, all roads now, Neil, lead, and we'll be talking about it even more extensively over the next couple of days. All roads now lead to the two Scottish Cup semi-finals. Celtic against Rangers, it's everything for Rangers. They've got to work out a way to do it. We've been looking and speculating over the last couple of days on if everyone's fit. Is this the Rangers lineup that you would like to see taking to the field? McGregor, Tavernier, Golson, Davies and Barisic, Lundstrom, Raskin, Cantwell, Tillman, Kent and Morelos? Or would you tweak it one or two?
I think that's his best 11 that he's got at his disposal that are fit. I can't really see any other alternative to those players.
Yeah, and with that in mind, is that a team that needs to be, as Ross McCrory mentioned there, that team needs to be bang at it and maybe take a leaf out of Aberdeen's book to take on Celtic?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. You know, I think Rangers tried to press Celtic in the last game at home. I think if they adopt similar tactics at Hampden, it might work better for them. 50-50 fans, you know, get on top of Celtic. I think, you know, if you allow any team to play, settle down and pass the ball, you'll settle into a rhythm, and Celtic have got players that can hurt you in that regard. I think Rangers need to be brave, strong, physically, make it difficult for Celtic to play. And the most important thing that, you know, we keep on saying for Rangers' point of view is stop leaking goals. You know, when was the last time they didn't, or they kept a clean sheet? You know, they've lost 2 against St Mirren, they'll won 5-2. You know, losing to Celtic, losing 2 to Aberdeen. You know, bad defending really against Celtic. The 2 each game at home and the 3-2 game. I mean, avoidable mistakes. And I think that's the most important thing for Rangers, is to be difficult to beat against Celtic first and foremost.
Well, that used to be the backbone of the team that you played in.
Yeah, that was, you know, and I suppose you've always rely on others in the forward area to make a difference. Now, again, in this moment in time, Celtic have probably got better forward players, but Rangers have got players that can score. I mean, Kent scored against Celtic, Morelos is capable of scoring a goal, as we know, Tillman's capable of scoring a goal, but they need to turn up on the big day.
Is there a key player in that 11 that we've mentioned there that you think is key to Rangers winning the game?
I think defensively, again, if I go back to it, you know, it's not to lose the game, and it's to make sure that the two centre halves are aware and keep a clean sheet. You know, and Furuhashi, as we know, is a difficult striker to play against. His movement's great in the box, and he actually puts people under pressure as well, and closes defenders down and makes them make mistakes. And he's one that, yeah, we need to marshal him.
Yeah, and you mentioned there about defence. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Ruffy, but obviously you mentioned there about not losing the goals. We're all aware of the fact that Suter, it was a bad pass back that allowed Jota in to score that third goal. If anything, I look at that side and I say to myself, does he go with it? If Golson was back and Suter was available, and Suter played against Aberdeen, would he be that defensive partnership?
Quite possibly. I mean, okay, you know, people can argue Suter made a mistake for the goal against Celtic, and you know, it's a big game and it'd be a disappointment, but I think he's played pretty well. He's looked fit, he's looked as if he's got good pace, he's strong, I think he's got a good mentality.
He can pick a pass out of defence.
Yeah, and I believe he's got a good mentality as well. He can handle big games, big pressure occasions. So, look, you know, if it was Goldson and Suter, or Suter and Davies, or you know, the combination of three, then fine. You know, I think they've just got to go on with it. I think they're all equally as good as each other, and they just have to make sure that they defend properly. Yeah,
you've been in this studio for more than a few weeks in various league games that they've come up against each other. How do you feel about this one? Are you confident? What way do you think it's going to go?
You know, I think you've got to look at it and say form favours Celtic. You know, they won the league title, they've won the last game. You know, so in that base, and I don't think they've got much in the way of injury worries either. It seems as if they've got a good squad to choose from, and Postecoglou uses his bench pretty well and uses the five subs to good effect. So I think you've got to favour Celtic to a certain degree. I think the basics, as I say, if Rangers defend well, they've always got a chance, and they should have players in the forward areas that can hopefully make a difference.
Yeah. Ruffy, Celtic lineup for that semi-final. I'm going to get Neil's prediction before he goes, but I mean, Hart, Johnson, Carter, Vickers, Starfelt, Taylor, McGregor, Hatate, Moy, Jota, Kyogo, Maeda. Could be a tweak here and there, but that would be the full strength that they would all be looking at.
Yeah, I think the back four speaks for itself, and the goalkeeper. You know, I would have a worry that Jota, Hatate haven't played for 2 or 3 weeks. You know, I think they're big players. I think if you're in the Rangers camp, you'll be hoping that they aren't playing. I think Celtic haven't been as, what would I say, what word am I using? No, as potent.
Yes.
With it, Hatate and Jota. I think they're big players. I mean, Celtic have got great players, but some players in big teams make other players play round about them. And I think Hatate in particular, you know, makes players run about him better on the day. And we all know what Jota can do. And Abada as well. Abada has been just terrifying, Barisic at the back. You know, so if he's not playing, so you've got Jota, Hatate and Abada, 3 of them aren't playing, and that team sheet comes into the Rangers dressing room, they will think they've got a chance.
Yeah.
With these 3 players missing.
And if they're playing?
Oh, they'll be panicking.
Right, okay.
Because they're the players they're the players that are causing the damage.
Yeah, okay. If you were picking them right now, Celtic, Rangers, give us your prediction.
1-1, extra time, penalties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who wins after penalties?
Rangers.
Rangers. Ruffy, you hang fire with yours.
Yeah, I'm hanging fire. That way to these important selections are there.
Yeah, and what about Falkirk, Inverness, Ruffy?
I think Inverness have got, they're in the right place at the right time. Yeah. They're in the playoffs now. They're in there. They're winning games. They're fighting very hard. You know, Falkirk have had a good season as well. Obviously, Dunfermline have pipped them for that. So,
are you going to go for Inverness
yes,
because you've done the Falkirk dinner now and you really don't care anymore?
No, is that what you're saying? There might be an Inverness dinner coming up.
Who would you pick, Neil?
I think Inverness as well. They're on a decent enough run of form at the moment. I mean, Falkirk likewise, but yeah, I just think perhaps Inverness have got that little bit extra.
Yeah, okay. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, Neil Lennon, a 1-to-1 exclusive. Always good copy, Neil, and he's on blistering form as well. I think you will thoroughly enjoy his chat on tomorrow's programme at 9 o'clock in the morning. It's released. Of course, we'll be back discussing even more of the fixtures and the split. Just on that, we're talking about players that have been, the Player of the Year nominations. The cards will be getting sent in by the players and the managers. It's not anybody else. And the PFA Scotland Player of the Year Awards takes place on the 14th of May at the Hilton in Glasgow. So suddenly we're getting it narrowed down now, and there's been a few real standouts. I mean, Shanklin scores a hat-trick at the weekend. Van Veen just says he feels confident taking on anybody at the moment. Every time he hits the ball, it's in the net.
Yeah, that's incredible, Kevin Van Veen's season, especially for his age. But I suppose experience counts for something. But no, he's had a great season, and he's been part of the reason Motherwell have escaped the drop, shall we say. He's had a wonderful season, but can you really see past Kyogo's and McGregor's of this world, especially if Celtic win the treble?
Yeah, it's always difficult. In fact, I think I'm going back, Ruffy, apart from Michael Higdon, I think you have to go back to the last players to win a Player of the Year in the PFA Scotland Player of the Year that did not involve Celtic or Rangers. I think we're going back to the likes of Theo Schnelders and Jim Bett at Aberdeen. It's
Ian Jess or that kind of...
Well, it's a long way back. I think it's Schnelders and Bett who've won it, but Michael Higdon won it and halted what was that dominance again.
Yeah, but I mean, the teams that are very, very successful, you would think honestly the players would vote for these players who have been impressive for the whole season.
Yeah. Van Veen deserves tremendous credit though, because he's banged in 24 goals. I noticed that there was talk of a Chinese side making a bid for him, but no disrespect to the whole nation of China, but the amount of footballers that I've heard that have gone to China and just could not settle in that country.
Yeah,
Would you, Ruffy?
But at the end of the day, what's my contract?
What if Neil, who was your agent, managed to get you a how? What sort of a deal?
Do you know actually that helped Mo Ross go to Beijing Guoan?
Is that right?
Yeah, no, it was difficult. He said it was difficult. Like, for example, if they played on a Saturday, they would probably travel like Wednesday for the game and stay overnight Thursday, Friday, game Saturday. So you couldn't really have a family life. They were it's almost like army, strict training regime, travel, everything was to a T, it's not an easy lifestyle.
Yeah, and of course you've got to embrace the culture, you've got to embrace the food as well, haven't you?
Yeah, that's it, exactly, and it's it's not like the whole Wong down the road, it's the authentic Chinese cuisine that you're served up. So yeah, there's a bit of adaptation there as well.
And Mo's not the only one to have suggested that whole problem. I know a number of players who've gone there and thought, oof, couldn't last.
Aye, no, it's difficult. Niall McGinn went to South Korea and it didn't really work out there either, and he was a fantastic player for Aberdeen. Yeah. So yeah, I think it can be difficult for Western players to adapt to the Far East culture.
I know that Kevin Van Veen wants that. Maybe he thinks he's got one more move in him. You can't fault the lad. If he's banged in the goals, he deserves to reap the rewards of that. But I'd love to see him still back in this division next season. I'm not saying that don't get him a move. You never know, one of the other clubs, one of the bigger clubs in Motherwell might snip at him.
Yeah, I would think you've got to be interested in him. The amount of goals that he's scored in our league. He's proved that he can score goals against the other teams in our league. And that, if you're looking at him, you're getting him at the right price and the deal's there. Why wouldn't you? Because he's obviously terrorised a few of the other teams in the league with the amount of goals he's scored. Yeah,
and of course, listen, we don't vote for the Player of the Year. I'm only giving you the assessment of what's happening. Matt says, so Shanklin's out of it, according to some Celtic fans. Kyogo's up for it, only scoring a few more goals. The logic is unreal. I think we only look at them and say, okay, we like him. It's the players who actually vote, and they don't just vote for, okay, you've hit 30 goals. As Ruffy's mentioned, there is a bit of tribalism. I'm not voting for him, he plays for my greatest rivals. But there is also an element of, I'm voting for this player because not only does he score goals, but his movement, the way he plays, how he conducts himself, it's the whole package.
Yeah, well, I suppose, over the years, goalkeepers have won the nomination, and players, I suppose, like Scott Brown, leaders, captains that maybe don't score goals, but they make an impact in the game.
Who did you regularly vote for? Can you remember?
I actually can't. You can't vote for your own players.
No, you can't. No. Yeah.
Probably an Aberdeen player.
Yeah. That's unusual for a Rangers player.
They were close, in those days they were kind of second, third in the tables.
Yeah, absolutely.
Billy Dawes, Duncan Shearers, Ian Jess, they had a good number of players.
Absolutely. But they never won. they never won it. I mean, just give me a sample of the type of team regularly that you were playing in as a starting 11. What would the starting 11 be?
The Rangers team?
Yeah.
Well, Gorham, right back, would be available.
Right.
So sometimes I played right back. Then Gough, Brown, Robertson. Again, wide right was sometimes available, so I would play there from time to time.
Yeah.
Trevor Stephen, McCall Ferguson was probably pretty much fixed central.
Ian Ferguson.
Yeah, and then left side would be a toss-up between Mikhailichenko and Houstra, and then the front two would be Haitley McCoist or Haitley Jury or Jury McCoist. So that effectively was the nucleus. And then when Gaza came, that kind of maybe upset the central midfield area a little bit.
Yeah.
But by and large, that was the squad. Alan McLaren came and he
was a great player.
Yeah, but he had his injury issues, but he he would come into the team if Gough wasn't available or certain players needed rested or whatever. So it was and David McPherson played right back. Gary Stevens was injured towards the end, but the size of the group and the squad, it wasn't particularly big. Gerranti obviously playing. When he came back fit, he was in the team playing a central area or a kind of off the front to the left as well. So.
Any chance of mentioning a dud? I love
it's been hard to get into that.
I was just about to say, I love your catchphrase, and Gascoigne came and upset the midfield balance. No, he made the midfield kneel.
That was, by and large, that was the group.
Yeah.
It was a pretty... the squad never really changed that much over a period of 4 or 5 years. There were 1 or 2 additions in and 1 or 2 out.
Yeah.
And then I think post 97, probably what was last season, then there were more and more players came in, and it was time that the team was getting turned around a little bit.
Did you ever sit in that dressing room and just have a wee look around and think, oh my God?
You can imagine sitting in the dressing room, I can play right back.
I'll play left back.
It was one of the first. I remember one of the first games, as a 17-year-old, and it was at Morton. And it was after that game, I was like, this is amazing. So Chris Woods was in goals, and it was Goffey and Terry Butcher that were the 2 centre-halves, and I was right back. And you think to yourself, that's the captain of Scotland, that's the captain of England, and that's probably the best goal in the country.
Yeah.
So it was eye-opening to play in the team. But once you were in amongst it and in amongst the training, you could see, everybody was part of a group, part of a team. When you're playing and passing and moving and winning the ball and running about, and there's not too much difference. Then you get Gascoigne and Laudrup that are
a level above again. Yeah. Roy Keane always used to say this, and I wonder if it was the same for you. Roy Keane said the toughest game sometimes we ever had in England was the training.
All right, okay. No, well, a variation in that theme. Archie Knox used to say, football's brilliant. Monday to Friday. It's game on a Saturday that ruins it.
Yeah, because therein comes the pressure, although not many, and thanks to some people that are obviously mentioning some of the players that you mentioned. Terry Butcher with a great left peg on him as well. Always good to get a wee insight from you on these things, especially the teams that you played for. Just down south, over the course of the next 24 hours, it's a big game that people want to talk about. Of course, the English Premier League. Here's how it all looks over the Tuesday and the Wednesday. It's going to be really interesting. Wolves, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Fulham, Leeds, Leicester, Nottingham Forest, Brighton, Chelsea, Brentford, West Ham against Liverpool, Manchester City at home to Arsenal, Southampton, Bournemouth, Everton against Newcastle, and Tottenham against Manchester United. And as Tottenham sit in disarray at the moment, having sacked the interim boss. Now they're taking it to a whole new level in England. They've sacked the interim boss. They're looking for a new manager, and of course over and above that you've got Mauricio Pochettino, heavily linked now with a return to English football as manager of Chelsea.
Yeah, I think the two of them will be on the phone to him. I think the two of them would love to get him, you know, and obviously the best deal on the table. He'll have to look at both sets of players. I think we've already decided that Tottenham don't seem to win anything, you know, and they don't seem to push the boat to get these 2 or 3 magnificent world-class players. And I think Chelsea have bought young, you know, and I remember seeing an article with Potter saying they told me to just hang on for 2 or 3 years and these young players will come through and you'll have a fantastic team, but obviously he's not there to see it. So I think they're a work in progress. So I would hazard a guess that he'll go there. He'll go to Chelsea.
Okay, it's Man City against Arsenal. Mouth-watering. I think a lot of people will be watching that game and wondering if Arteta can have maybe one last stand at trying to stop Manchester City overtaking them to win the title. I think a lot of people thought Arsenal would implode. Here's the 2 managers ahead of the big one.
It's going to be a tough night and challenge, yes, but the opportunity is incredible for us. And we knew from the beginning, you want to win a Premier League, you have to go to Spurs and you have to beat them. You have to go to Chelsea and you have to beat them. You have to go away from them and you have to beat them. And this is what we've been doing. That's why we are here. And now we have to go to City and you have to beat them. You want to be champion, you have to win those matches. It's as simple as that.
It's really important, not decisive, because there's still many tough games for both sides. We have more games to play, but we cannot deny how important it is.
Okay, I can only see one winner. I think Man City are just going to finally put that final nail in the coffin for Arsenal.
I expect so. I think Arsenal have been very, very good this season. Like most people, I expected them to implode long before the end of the season, but they've managed to hang on in. You know, football's football. If they go to Man City and they come away with a draw, you know, it's not a bad result. And yeah, I think people have written them off, and I think they'll probably get more resilience than people think. So you just never know on any given game and any given night, but you do favour Man City at home.
Yeah, I think Man City could be 3-0 up within half an hour, Neil. Now there's an opinion for you.
That is. How much you get in the bookies for that?
Absolutely. Well, I'm not putting end on now because I've said there might be 30,000 at the Celtic Rangers women's final, and I think I've overestimated it a bit. Ruffy, you could be. Who do you think is going to win, Man City?
I think Man City have got Arsenal at the right time. The last 2 games, Arsenal are losing goals. They hadn't been losing goals up until the last couple of games there, but some of the goals they're losing are pretty weak, and they're coming up against a team who are going to have a lot of dominance and they like scoring goals.
I've got a dilemma as well, Ruffy. William Smith has just sent here a message. He says, Peter, your pal Davy Moyes, is he going to pump your team Liverpool? I mean, honestly, Moyes could end up winning the Europa Conference League and getting West Ham out of relegation trouble. He's just had a big result at the weekend.
Yeah, I think they will stay up. I think the big game at the weekend is Leeds-Leicester. That's an important game for both clubs. And I do think West Ham will probably have enough to stave off relegation.
Yeah. Okay, Ruffy, last word to you, because it looks as if you brought in a newspaper clipping today, and I'm going to give you the last word because you mentioned yesterday, and it caused a fair bit of consternation, that you thought the Jago tackle was indeed a red card, and Stuart Dougal, the former referee, is out there saying, yep, could have done a serious injury, studs were up. Yep. Obviously he thinks it's a red card and they don't think that Hibs will win the appeal, and if they don't win the appeal, shows your condescending face again.
No, I'm holding fire because I could get egg in my face here because it could get overturned.
Yeah,
but you don't know.
You will.
No, I think Stuart's definition of the rules.
Yeah.
It's not what you think and it's what the rules say and what the referees interpret. The Sir Johnson boy had his feet in the ground, the other boy didn't have his feet in the ground with his studs up, and there was contact.
It's maybe old news, and it's a similar sort of Stuart Dougal commentary as well. The Graeme Shinnie red card.
Yes.
Oh, how's that a red card?
Well, is that a red card for you? No. Is the Jego one a red card?
I've not seen the Jego one, but the Shinnie one, no. And now Stuart Dougal said, "Oh, you need to move with the times."
Yeah.
And the fact is, if you're a player and you're sprinting towards a ball and you see someone else sprinting towards the ball, it's a split-second decision to go for that ball. If you hit the ball and he does it at the same time, the one with the most force wins the challenge.
Yeah.
If somebody's
and then
late,
a follow through.
Yeah. If somebody's late to or doesn't get to the ball early enough, and you win the ball and there's a follow through, I mean, it's not intentional. I don't understand how there can be red cards. Although, as Ruffy says, he is applying the letter of the law. You know.
And of course, the other one that gets belted at is well, we don't know the rules. The referees have got a greater grasp of it. Well, listen, we're about to find out if he wins that. I did ask you a quiz question. It's okay, Ruffy, you'll have your moment, you'll have your day, damn your jets. I did ask you a quiz question. Who was the player who scored who scored the final winning goal in Arsenal's invincible season? And the answer, and I can tell you right now that the answer was Patrick Vieira. Scored in the 2-1 win over Leicester. And some breaking news that's just coming in, which we'll probably get a quick comment from both of you on, but it's just been confirmed that Stuart Robertson, the Rangers managing director, will leave the club this summer. And I think James Bisgrove is going to become the new chief executive. So what's your initial reaction to Stuart Robertson and Ross Wilson? There was two figureheads that the Rangers fans wanted out.
Surprises me a little bit. I mean, I know Stuart Robertson to a certain degree, and you know, he's just a guy who works behind the scenes, and he'd try and make Rangers tick and make all the departments work, and ultimately he's not responsible for selecting players, and ultimately he's not responsible for putting players on the pitch, which is what the fans are probably not happy about, which is results. So I think that's particularly harsh. You don't know the ins and outs of it, why he left, although, you know, on the face of it, it would indicate an element of fan power, and ultimately it's fan power that gets people to sack, or managers to sack particularly.
Yeah, and that has proved to be the case, Ruffy, especially at Rangers, because the banners were out there, they were well unhappy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes at Ibrox just now. Obviously Douglas Park leaving as well. You've got to think that there's some things happening, disagreements behind the scenes about particular things, and people are moving on, so big changes at Rangers.
Yep, absolutely. And in the boardroom, when it eventually settles down, they'll need to give huge backing to the manager, who only has one simple remit: finish above Celtic, and more often than not, that wins you the league. Okay, you can give us your thoughts on that departure in greater detail tomorrow on the show. Don't forget, we'll be on 4 o'clock till 5 on the football show. But tomorrow morning, our exclusive one-to-one with Neil Lennon is up on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. And of course, we had a one-to-one with Alex McLeish the week before. We have John McMaster of Aberdeen. There's my story with David Martindale. There's so much content that if you're a football fan, I hope you'll enjoy it. From Ruffy, from Neil, and from myself, Peter, thanks for watching.